The manhwa begins with a man explaining that, according to the butterfly effect, the fate of humanity can be altered by a single choice. To him, however, it is nothing more than an unfortunate phenomenon, as he has made multiple regrettable choices. Suddenly, someone starts banging on the door, calling him honey and asking if he is listening. She states that she came there knowing he was inside, insisting that it would be best for him to open the door. She mentioned that she had already asked Ilea, the lodge's housemaster, and confirmed that he had no scheduled classes for the day. She then questions if he is deliberately ignoring her. Realizing the situation, he starts to cringe, remarking that there is no other stalker like her. In response, she says, "Fine," and begins cutting through the door, causing him to sweat nervously. He protests, stating that this is against the rules, as it is the student council president's duty to enforce punishments when someone breaks them. She, however, reveals that she is the student council president before bursting through the door. She accuses him of avoiding her, specifying that he has done so 32 times. He calls her a freak for keeping count, but she tells him that she has a question for him. At this moment, it is revealed that his name is Dud Campbell. Without hesitation, she directly asks him if he will marry her, and her name is shown to be Eleanor. He tells her to wait, but another woman interrupts, addressing Eleanor and questioning whether she is coveting a man who is already taken, further asking if that is how her family operates. It is revealed that this woman's name is Sarah and that Eleanor is a princess. Eleanor remarks that the place is too bright for an assassin to be present due to the number of witnesses, but Sarah replies that eliminating all witnesses is part of her job. Feeling increasingly awkward, Dud admits that he has never even thought about marriage with either of them. Just then, another person crashes in from the ceiling, landing in a superhero pose. Her name is Lilu, and the other two women do not seem pleased to see her. She tells Dude to live with her, as the wedding preparations are already set. Dude, overwhelmed, begins to wonder how he ended up in this situation, only for yet another woman to enter. She arrives while cracking a chain, calling the others rude and questioning Dude about what he does daily to attract such attention. Declaring herself his fiancée, she asserts that she cannot let it slide. It is revealed that her name is Yuria. Yet another woman then arrives asking if everyone can stop talking, as she claims that Dud belongs to her. This new arrival, introduced as Fennel, is revealed to have horns. All of the women begin arguing, with some viewing the situation as a competition, while others are convinced that Dud is solely theirs. The argument escalates as they leap at each other in an attempt to settle the matter. Meanwhile, Dud is left in utter confusion, questioning what is happening and why every woman around him appears to be acting irrationally. It seems that a harem war has erupted, with some men drowning while others perish from thirst. Dud eventually explains how the situation began and how he ended up entangled with all of these women who are deeply infatuated with him. He states that there is a simple reason for it. He explains that a survival game is what put him in this situation. It is called Savior Rising, or SRS for short, and revolves around academy life, primarily aimed at younger adults. While it gives off some weeaboo vibes, the characters are familiar and stable. He completed the game, saw the ending, and felt accomplished. However, the next day he was suddenly swept away and found himself here. He reasons that it is not as if he swore at the game or was specifically targeted by some godlike developer, just because he did not like it that much. Regardless, he ended up possessing Dud's body, with no power whatsoever. He is the heir of an unremarkable viscount and nothing more than a third-rate extra in this world. In Campbell Viscounty, farming is the main industry, and unlike other parts of the Empire, there are no dungeons. In fact, the Viscounty was barely even mentioned in SR's feature film. Because of this, the idea of a Viscount's son entering the Imperial Academy was something that turned the entire world upside down. As he shakes hands with his father tearfully tells him that he is the pride of their Viscounty and warns him not to cause any trouble. He explains that Allant Academy is a place where all of the Empire's noble children gather, and as a Viscount's son, the best thing he can do is avoid attracting attention. Dud replies that he understands, and his stats are finally revealed. They are completely terrible. He has no skills, no proficiencies, and no special gifts. Even as a veteran player, he has never seen such abysmal starting stats. The game's main quest is straightforward. Enter the academy, get appointed to a class, and continue the story from there. According to the game system, ignoring a quest results in immediate failure, as Alant Academy will fall into chaos due to the villain's violence. Determined to avoid anything that could endanger his survival, he reassures his father, placing a hand on his shoulder and promising that he has no intention of standing out. He will keep his head down and ensure that his grades remain average. His father, however, tells him that this is not what he meant. Dud insists that the protagonist will handle everything on her own and that avoiding attention is the best course of action for someone like him. Thus, his life at the academy begins. However, from the very start, he is already confused about why he finds himself in the same carriage as her. Across from him sits Eleanor, whose nickname is the Bloodthirsty, and who has a mountain of corpses behind her. In the game, her full name is Eleanor Alaris Lot Tristan, and she is the final boss of this world. In this scenario, she and the protagonist continuously fight until her sanity crumbles. Eventually, the dormant existence of the great demon takes over Eleanor's body, transforming her into the final boss, whom no one but the protagonist, with all the plot armor, can defeat. Eleanor then asks if he needs a doctor, commenting that he does not look well. He reassures her that he is fine. She explains that the Tristan dukedom is highly concerned with its image, and that her decision to sit here instead of in first class was a calculated one, meant to show that they are an approachable, high-ranking, noble family. She apologizes for worrying him, adding that everyone who travels in the same carriage as her reacts the same way. As he listens, he starts to realize that she is somewhat different from how he remembers her. The game used to describe her as meritocratic, a perfectionist, and audacious, but he hadn't known that she had a sensitive side. She asked why he wasn't replying and if he was curious about something else. He told her it was nothing, just that she was unexpectedly kind. She then asked what he meant by unexpectedly, wondering if he had heard bad rumors about her, or if they had met before. Realizing he had slipped up, he quickly came up with an excuse, saying he had heard that she was quite strict. She responded by calling him a pretty weird guy, noting that he looked dead on the inside and laughed awkwardly, mentioning that she heard that a lot. Deciding that he didn't want to get involved with her, he resolved to stay quiet and look outside. As he did so, he noticed that the surrounding scenery was quite stunning. However, he soon realized that boulders were rolling straight toward them. Shocked, he called out to her, stretching his hand toward her face and saying, "Excuse me." At that moment, a boulder exploded against the side of their carriage. Her necklace started to glow, and someone explained that she possessed an item called Armor Recognition and Creation for Adult Skeletons. Remarking that whoever had named it should be banned, she apparently kept the item on her at all times. Meanwhile, he held onto her with all his strength, knowing that he couldn't survive otherwise, as all of his stats were rated F. A bit later, she asked if he was okay, and when he opened his eyes, he realized his face had been buried in her chest. Embarrassed, he quickly moved away as she told him to get off because he was heavy. He apologized while raising his head, but she reassured him that it was fine since he had done it to save her. However, he was confused because she was clearly misunderstanding the situation. She then commented that it was her first time being approached by a man so forwardly but assured him that she understood his intentions and that he shouldn't apologize. Of course, he hadn't done it to save her. He had only been trying to save himself. Then she asked for his name. He considered saying something else, feeling that if he answered truthfully, he would probably run into her often. Despite that, he told her his real name, unable to help but be entranced by her beauty. She responded that she wouldn't forget it and that she would repay him later. Just then, a status window appeared, informing him that he had gained a villain's interest, fulfilling the conditions for his special gifts. As a result, he received the skills Desperate Survival and Deadly Charm, which explained why so many were after him. The wreckage of the train was then revealed and medieval-style ambulances finally arrived. Some remarked that, perhaps because the train was heading to Alant, the special security measures had been highly effective, resulting in no casualties. Meanwhile, he complained that he was in pain, but when someone checked on him, they remarked that they hadn't even touched him yet. As they rode away, he turned his attention back to his special gift, the fated attraction. It was explained that as he gained more interest from those with evil traits, he would receive various rewards. He then realized why he had never been able to unlock the condition. There was no such thing as evil in Campelis County, as everyone there was ridiculously happy. Naturally, the gift had remained locked until now. Checking his rewards, he examined the skill Desperate Survival, which increased his stats in times of need and scaled relative to danger. Its rank was unknown, as was the rank of Deadly Charm, which made it easier for him to attract those with evil traits. He acknowledged that Desperate Survival would be useful in battle, but found Deadly Charm strange. He wondered if he could really handle having such a skill, as it meant that those with evil traits would be drawn to him. As he contemplated this, he thought about all the villainesses he had encountered. A warrior who became obsessed with battle, a mentally deranged sword god who cursed at anyone who came too close, a violent assassin who killed if paid, and a genius mage whose senses were dull to everything. Each of them, he noted, was incredibly troublesome, and he had already met them all. He sighed, saying that this was fine for now and that it was important for him to gain skills that would help his survival. What he found strange was that the skill rank was labeled as a question mark. Even though he was an SR veteran, he had never seen such a thing before. The doctor then asked if he was really okay or if he needed a psychological assessment, but he assured them that he was fine. As he stepped out of the carriage, he started looking annoyed. The scene then shifted to the school's welcoming committee. While someone spoke, he tuned them out, recalling his earlier conversation with the EMT in the carriage. The EMT had mentioned that they had heard he had been riding with a Tristan princess. When he asked why that mattered, the EMT pointed out that he was just a Viscount's son with no connections. However, the EMT, an Alant alumnus from a similarly no-name family, suggested that it was no coincidence that the boulder had been aimed at his carriage out of all the others. They explained that the Tristan Duke had many enemies and warned that it would be best for him to avoid the princess, as he would only end up getting hurt if he stayed around her. He responded that he would keep that in mind, though he was already involved with her due to her misunderstanding about him saving her. At that moment, an event was mentioned regarding the first stage of trust occurring soon. He wasn't surprised at all. After all, simply being around the final boss was bound to be dangerous. Suddenly, someone called out to him, breaking him out of his thoughts. They demanded to know why he was spacing out, and the others started laughing at him. By that point, everyone had already formed sparring pairs except for him. He then realized that he had completely forgotten about the practical evaluation that was scheduled right after the entrance ceremony. Someone informed him that his opponent had been automatically decided. Wondering who he had been matched with, he looked to his side. He concluded that if everyone else had chosen their partners, then the only person left had to be the strongest. Turning to see his opponent, he was completely stunned. Standing before him was a woman who greeted him. He was momentarily frozen as it was revealed that her name was Alia Crick Anks, the biggest genius in the entire world. In the future, she would become the savior, as she was the protagonist of SR. She asked if he needed help getting up, but he initially said he was okay before changing his mind and accepting her help. Even then, he still couldn't believe that he had met the main character of the game so easily. As he started to tear up, he wondered if he was completely screwed now. The scene then shifted to someone announcing that Count Ken had arrived, along with a marquis named Galander. Meanwhile, a woman remarked that she might be out of her mind at the moment, as the interest duels were ongoing, yet for some reason, she was late. While the others were discussing Eleanor's whereabouts, she suddenly arrived, completely soaked in blood. The artist had clearly chosen a striking angle for the scene. A girl immediately asked Eleanor where she had been, saying that she had a lot of questions for her. Still covered in blood, Eleanor simply responded that she had to take care of some things. The woman sighed, telling Eleanor that they needed to handle the situation together. As the room cleared out, she asked if anyone had died. Eleanor, remaining cold and indifferent, replied that not many had, only around 12. She explained that they had been assassins who had dropped a boulder on the train, trying to make it look like an accident. She had discovered who they were and, since she had been nearby, had simply killed them. The woman chastised her, saying that she shouldn't have done that and should have left such matters to the school. However, Eleanor dismissed her concerns, calling the idea annoying and asking if she really expected her to be like everyone else and forgive those who had wanted her dead. The woman sighed again and told her to get changed, reminding her that the entrance duels were still going on. She added that if she went now, she would see Aaliyah, a once-in-a-generation genius, who was currently dueling someone named Dud. Eleanor immediately asked if she meant Dud Campbell. When the woman confirmed, she seemed surprised, asking if she knew him, as he seemed completely unremarkable. At that moment, Eleanor recalled their encounter on the train and started to smile, remarking that he was a pretty weird guy. Back to Dud, he was shaking while holding his sword up as the crowd chanted around him, calling him a country bumpkin and placing bets on how many moves he would last. Some joked that he would be lucky to survive at all. Given his terrible stats, if he took even one hit from Aaliyah, he might as well be dead. However, he realized that this fight could actually work in his favor. Since it was a dangerous situation, he had nothing to lose, and thanks to his desperate survival skill, his stats would increase relative to the level of danger he faced. He then speculated that there were definitely villains in the crowd watching. If he didn't die, he might at least manage to draw their interest. With this slight information advantage and a well-timed move, he might actually survive. At that moment, Aaliyah suddenly looked concerned and called out to him, catching him off guard. She then told him that he needed to be honest with her before lowering her voice and speaking quietly. She said that she could tell he was really weak. He immediately started to panic, but she continued, stating with full confidence that she knew she was right, and that she was about to give him a serious beatdown. At this rate, Dud thought that things were escalating too much. He asked Aaliyah why she even wanted to beat him in the first place, to which she replied that it was because he had been with the Tristan girl, whom she absolutely hated. Not just her, but the entire house Tristan, as she considered them complete demons. Dude acknowledged that she was bold for saying that, but admitted that she wasn't wrong. According to the story, she was strongly opposed to the Tristans, which he understood since it was a family matter. However, he clarified that he had only been in the same room as Eleanor. Aaliyah, however, insisted that he still reminded her of Eleanor, which pissed her off, so she was going to make him suffer. She suggested that they should at least pretend to have a proper fight. Dud admitted that the idea was tempting, but he knew that if he didn't grow stronger within the next 2 days, his life would be in serious danger. The only way for him to survive was to stand out in this fight. Determined, he told her to go all out, then suddenly added that he actually liked Eleanor quite a lot. Aaliyah immediately looked furious, tightening her grip on her practice sword as she asked if he was being serious. Of course he was lying, this was just a way to ensure she gave it her all. With a straight face, he confirmed his statement, saying he was as serious as her hatred for Eleanor. At that moment, his deadly charm skill activated, and he received new gifts in return. Aaliyah declared that she wouldn't feel bad about this at all, and immediately dashed toward him, swinging her sword. Dud barely managed to dodge, but his weapon wasn't as lucky, it was completely cut in half. Staring at the broken sword in his hand, he realized he had messed up. Aaliyah, surprised that he had managed to dodge, acknowledged that he wasn't a complete weakling. She then adjusted her stance, warning him that she would be going a little harder this time before launching into a thrusting attack. Dud's heart pounded as a status window appeared, detecting a dangerous situation, though not life-threatening, and activating his skill at X rank. As his hand began to glow blue, he instinctively struck Aaliyah straight in the face with an attack he mentally dubbed Domestic Violence no Jutsu. He quickly realized that X rank was an absurdly powerful level, as it was the highest possible rank. Meanwhile, Aaliyah, caught completely off guard, was sent flying across the stage, blood flying from her mouth. The other students watched in shock, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. She crashed into the wall, triggering a massive blue light explosion. Dud stood frozen, in complete denial. This was the exact opposite of what he had intended. Now he was standing out more than ever. The students around him looked terrified, unable to process how someone with F-rank stats had, on his very first day at Elan Academy, successfully taken down the world's protagonist. For a moment, he was convinced she might actually be dead. The scene shifted to a conversation between the teachers. One of them proposed that Dud might be a dangerous con artist. Another teacher, Conrad, remarked that his opinion on Dud had changed very quickly. However, he pointed out that this theory didn't make sense because, according to all available insight, Dud had absolutely no combat skills or powers prior to the duel. And yet, the strike he had landed had been undeniably real. A female instructor asked him to clarify what he meant by real. Conrad explained that he meant that no one at Elant, himself included, would have been fine after taking that hit. He asserted that the chances of Dud legitimately defeating Aaliyah, a potential future warrior, were zero. However, he speculated that Dud might have temporarily increased his power through an illegal substance, a hidden tool, or some other method. The other possibility, he admitted, was that Dud was an absolutely monstrous genius. The female instructor found it difficult to accept his victory at face value, but noted that Aaliyah's sponsor, Margrave Kindred, would not stand by idly. At the same time, she acknowledged that it would be a great loss for the Academy to ignore a student with such potential. She suggested that they simply wait and see whether he was truly special or a fraud, as the truth would reveal itself soon enough. She then mentioned that this year's admissions included several highly unique students, some of whom required special treatment. If Dud was truly as remarkable as Conrad suspected, he would find a role for himself among them soon enough. Meanwhile, the school newspaper had already started spreading rumors about Dud, suggesting that he might be the child of the Empire's Knight Commander and the greatest talent to ever set foot in the Academy. Dud sighed in frustration, concluding that the media in both his world and this game were absolute garbage. A status window appeared showing that his gift had influenced his profile. It revealed that Eleanor's trust in him had now reached level 2, and his reward was ready to be claimed in the character event. Additionally, figures such as Baron Armit and Viscount Lupin had begun to take an interest in him, and the list kept growing. Dude realized that this meant characters' reactions toward him moved from curiosity to interest and then to trust. The points he earned could be used in the store. He noted that, so far, the person with the most curiosity about him was none other than Eleanor. However, he couldn't understand why the final boss of the game was so interested in him. As he prepared to receive his reward, he discovered that it was none other than the Tristan sword technique. He was thrilled by how valuable it was, calling it a complete steal. The only issue was that the Tristan family was deeply involved with demons, though he honestly didn't care. However, something confused him. Aaliyah's name had appeared in his character information. The gifts he received were supposed to apply only to villains who had positive interest in him, yet Aaliyah was neither a villain nor someone who seemed particularly interested in him. Just then, someone knocked on his door. A voice called out, asking if this was Dud's room. He immediately recognized the voice. It was Aaliyah. She asked if she could come in. He wondered why she was here and considered staying quiet in the hopes that she would leave. However, she quickly added that she knew he was inside, warning him that if he didn't answer, she would break the door down. Dude, exasperated, asked if she was insane. Upon hearing his voice, Aaliyah smirked, confirming that he was inside and requesting once again that he open the door, as she had something to tell him. When he hesitantly asked what it was, she started to blush before responding that she simply thought they should get to know each other a little better. Dud, utterly bewildered, could only wonder what on earth was happening now.